In this video, I take on another card-themed shoot, but this time with a multi-light setup.
AdoramaTV presents Take and Make Great Photography with Gavin Hoey.
Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching AdoramaTV, brought to you by Adorama, the camera store that has everything for us photographers. And in this video, I'm going to do a shoot here in my small home studio. So there's a concept behind this shoot, and it's a continuation of the last one where we had playing cards in the shot. Well, this time I've gone all out. We're going to have a full-on poker game here, and we're going to try and capture a range of emotions across the set of pictures. Now, to do this, I'm going to welcome back Brian to the studio. Say hello, Brian.
Hello.
And he's going to be our poker player, who's going to have a bit of an interesting roller coaster ride. There's going to be thrills, spills, and ultimately, I'm afraid, Brian, you're going to lose all your money. Such is the way of the world. Okay, but to do it, we need to set up some lights. So let's set this up one light at a time. So whenever you start with a complex lighting setup, at least anything with more than one light, the best place to begin is with your key light, your main light. And for this, my main light is going to be, well, this guy right here. This is the Flashpoint StreakLight 360, and I've just got it on a small beauty dish. So this is going to be the key light that lights Brian, but I'm working in quite a tight space here, and I need to think about where I position the light. Now, knowing something about the inverse square law means that I know if I keep this light nice and close to Brian, it'll light him really well, but the fall off will mean that the background will stay quite dark. And that's important to me because it means I can light the background separately. Now, if you want to find out more about the inverse square law, check out the Adorama Learning Center, where there's tons of information about how this inverse square law thing works. Once the light's in roughly the right position, I reckon that's probably about right there, we need to meter. So let's grab the light meter, we'll pop it underneath Brian's chin, pointing back at the light, and I can get a flash meter reading here, so I'm getting f16, so that's just a little bit bright. I think I want an aperture of about f11. So let's just dial that down one stop, and I can do that here on the remote. Take another meter reading, and sure enough, it says f11. So that's set the light correctly. I'm going to dial f11 into the camera, and we'll take a test shot and see how it goes. Okay, Brian, here we go. Brilliant, so there we go, that works really nicely. You can see that Brian's nicely lit, we've got some excellent illumination, but that background has stayed nice and dark. It's a kind of a contrasty light, but that's the look I want to go for this shot. So the second light in this setup is actually two lights. I want two equal and identical lights just to rim light the edge of Brian, just to separate him from the background. So I've got one of my RoveLight 600s on one side. I'm going to add the second one here and try to get it exactly the same power and roughly the same angle and height. But before I do that, I need to make sure it's turned on, which it is, and also set it so it can fire when the StreakLight 360 fires. So these are different lights. They have a radio trigger, but they don't work together. So instead, what I'm going to do is switch on the optical slave for the RoveLight, so when it sees the StreakLight fire, the RoveLight fires as well. And most flashes will have this function. Once that's turned on, I can just elevate this up, get the angle about the same, and I'm just trying to get it so the light just hits the side of Brian's head, and it's just coming in just slightly from behind as well, and I'll get some spill onto the table to add a little bit more light there too. Okay, let's just take a meter reading for these and see what we get. So I'm going to meter just for the side light. So I'm going to get my meter reading from Brian's shoulder, pointing back at the RoveLight. So that's reading f16. So that's roughly one stop more light on the shoulders than on the face. That should give a nice glow on the shoulders, but there's only one way to find out. Let's take a shot. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so you can see that really gives some lovely highlights around Brian's shoulders. There's a little bit of light in the hair, and again, it adds to that slightly contrasty feel, and the elevated lighting positions adds to the whole mood of the shot. So the last light is just going to be for the background only, really. It's another one of the StreakLights. This is the lower watted 180 StreakLight, and it's just going to fire a bit of light up here just to light that part of the background, just behind Brian, really. How much light does it need? Well, it needs as much light as your background requires. So if you had a white background, you'd obviously need less light than if you had a black background. This is a grey one, so it's something in the middle. I don't know what the right power is. Let's take a meter reading and see what it says. F22, well, that sounds pretty bright compared to everything else. Remember, I'm shooting at F11 throughout. But you've got to remember, I'm lighting a dark surface here, so that might be right, it might be too bright, it might be too dark. There's only one way to find out. Take the shot. And I reckon that looks just about right. There's just that little circle of light behind Brian, just to separate him out from the background without overpowering the background and overpowering the shot. So there we go, we've got everything ready, we've got our set prepared, our lights are ready to go. Brian, are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to do a shoot. Let's do it. Okay, so I think we need some cards, really, don't you? There we go. Maybe quite casual, you can toss them in. 3, ready, 1, 2, 3. So there we go, that was great fun to do. Did you enjoy that, Brian?
Yeah, it was loads of fun.
Fantastic, we got chips everywhere, we got cards everywhere, but what we're going to do now is we're going to get my favourite picture into Photoshop and we'll do a little bit of work on it, and we're going to do that right now.
Don't forget to check out Adorama's latest contest and your chance to win amazing prizes.
Well, now I've had a chance to sit down and look at the images, I can see that Brian did a brilliant job at showing a range of emotions. As a result, I think the images look best when you see more than one, when you see that range of emotions through the shots. So how am I going to do that in Photoshop? Well, I'm going to create a triptych, 3 images on one single sheet of paper or one single image. Now I've gone through and I've sorted out my favourite images, so let's have a little look. I think these 3 kind of sum up the whole emotional roller coaster. So let's just select one, hold shift, select another, hold shift, so click on the third, and then I can right click and choose Open in Camera Raw. Now that'll open all 3 images in Camera Raw, and that's handy because now I can do the same thing to all 3 images. In fact, I've done a little bit of playing around here just to get us going, but if I click on the Select All button, you'll notice that all of the 3 images on the left are now highlighted. And that's important because it means that I can do one thing to the image on screen and have it affect all of the other images at the same time. And what I'm going to do is come over to the effects here, and I'm going to add in a border, because when these are joined together, I don't want them just to sort of bang up next to each other. I want a nice little curvy edge border, and I can do it here in RAW, which means it's non-destructive. So I'm just going to increase the amount of the post-crop vignetting all the way up to maximum. And I know what you're thinking, that's absolutely hideous. It's actually going to get worse before it gets better, because now I'm going to change the midpoint all the way down to 0, like that, and yes, it has got worse. Then I'm going to take the roundness, and I'll take that down to the left as well, minus 100, and now you can start to see this border starting to take shape. It's a little bit soft and fuzzy at the edges, so let's just take the feathering for that and remove it all the way down to 0 to get that nice hard-edged border. And you'll see that all 3 images have the same border treatment, although I've only had to do it to 1. And that was because Select All had been checked. Now there's one more thing I want to do, and that's make sure that all 3 images come out exactly the same size. And I can do that here in RAW as well, so again, non-destructive. I just come down to the workflow options at the bottom, and here I'm going to change the resize, And I'm going to resize this down so the longest side, the width in this case, 3000 pixels, that's fine. I'll open up the images and that will open all 3 images into Photoshop. Once I've got the images into Photoshop, we can do the next step, which is to gather the 3 images together in one long, thin, single image. Now, of course, it's worth noting which is going to be your left, your center, and your right image. In this case, the most important one to work on is the middle image. So let's go find it. I reckon that's the right one. That's probably the middle one. And yeah, that's the beginning. So let's go with this one. This is the middle image. That's the one I'm going to use. What we need to do is make enough space either side of this image to make room for the other 2 pictures. And I can do it really simply by going to Image, Canvas Size. Now on Canvas Size, there's a couple of things I'm going to change. First of all, I'll make sure my units are a nice easy %, because that just makes the maths much easier if I have it on %. Because if I need 3 times the width it is now, well, 3 times 100, that'll be 300. Next, I'm going to change the anchor point. So I'm going to make sure it's dead center, just like this. It doesn't want to be any of these corners, none of these. Just click in the middle if it's anything else other than that. Finally, the extension color. Well, we've got this white border, so it kind of makes sense to have the rest of the brand new area white as well, but of course you can change it if you wish. I'll click OK. So that gives me room for the other 2 pictures, and now I just add them in. So let's go grab this one and select it all and edit and copy, close it down, edit and paste, and we can paste it straight in. And because we did all that resizing in RAW, I can drag it to the side knowing it's a perfect fit. And same with the first one, copy it, close it down, and paste it in. And remember, because most of this happened in RAW, all of this is non-destructive, so of course you could change it at a later stage, but for now, there it is. There's my 3 images all on one sheet of paper. Well, if you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos from myself and the other amazing presenters here on AdoramaTV, you know what you've got to do. You've got to click on the subscribe button. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.
Do you want great looking prints at low cost? Be sure to visit our easy to use online printing service. Adorama Pix has professionals who treat your images with the utmost care that you can count on. For a quick turnaround on photos, cards, or albums, use AdoramaPix.com.